In the shining city of Virion Prime, where humans and aliens lived side by side, there was a place called the Star Diner, a bright, silver cafe that floated above the clouds. Every evening, soldiers, pilots, and traders came there to eat, talk, and laugh. But at one corner of the diner, one table was always quiet. At that table sat Liraya, a young alien girl with blue skin that glowed softly under the neon lights. Her big violet eyes looked gentle but tired. She wore an old worker's suit, the kind given to those who cleaned the starships. In front of her was a metal tray with only water and a few dry food cubes. Around her, the noise was loud. Humans laughed, robots served drinks, and soldiers told stories of battles. But no one looked at Liraya. Some even whispered and laughed when they saw her sitting alone. "She doesn't even eat real food," one human muttered. "She should go back to her planet," another said with a grin. Liraya heard them. She always did. But she never said anything. She just looked down and quietly moved the food on her tray. It wasn't always like this. Once, her people were known as the Lunari, proud travelers of the stars. But after the war, their ships were destroyed, their cities burned, and now they worked for humans to survive. Liraya was one of the last of her kind on Virion Prime. Every night, she came to the diner after work. She watched humans laugh, eat, and share stories. She didn't hate them. She just wanted to understand them, to be part of their world. But no one ever spoke to her. Until that night, as she sat alone, a shadow fell across her table. A tray landed in front of her, full of food, hot and steaming, with a drink that glowed golden under the light. Liraya looked up. Standing before her was a young human man in a pilot's jacket, his eyes kind but serious. His name was Eli Carter, a new arrival from Earth, just assigned to the Virion fleet. He smiled a little. "Mind if I sit here?" Liraya blinked, unsure what to say. "Humans don't usually sit here," she whispered. "Well," Eli said, sitting down, "I'm not like most humans." The other soldiers at nearby tables went silent for a moment, watching them. Then, some started to whisper and laugh. "Look at Carter," one said. "Having dinner with a Lunari girl. Careful, she might bite," another joked. Eli ignored them. He pushed his tray toward her. "You look hungry," he said softly. "Eat." Liraya hesitated. Her hands shook slightly. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because no one else did," he answered. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The noise of the diner faded. The lights glowed brighter around them. She looked at the food, then at him, unsure if it was a trick. But something in his voice felt real. Something she hadn't heard in a long time. Kindness. Slowly she picked up a piece of bread and tasted it. Warm. Soft. Real. Her eyes watered. "It's good," she said quietly. "Eli smiled. Told you." Around them, some humans rolled their eyes. Others just shook their heads and went back to eating. But one man at the counter kept watching. A soldier with sharp eyes and a deep scar on his face. He leaned closer to his friend and whispered, "That's Carter, right? The one from Earth Command? He has no idea what he's getting into." Liraya didn't notice. For the first time in months, she smiled, a small, fragile smile. For the first time, someone saw her not as an alien, but as a person. But far above the diner, on the dark side of the city, something else was happening. A hidden signal blinked across the comm lines, a Lunari distress code, old and almost forgotten. Someone, somewhere, had just sent a message. She is alive. And that message was about to change everything. The Star Diner slowly emptied as the night deepened. Neon lights reflected off the glass walls, and soft music hummed in the background. Liraya sat quietly, finishing the last of her meal. Across from her, Eli Carter watched with a gentle smile. He didn't say much, just listen when she spoke. It had been a long time since anyone had listened to her. "You really came from Earth?" Liraya asked softly. "Yeah," Eli said, leaning back. "Born in New Chicago. Never been this far out before." She nodded, her violet eyes glowing faintly. "Earth must be beautiful." "It is," he said. "But it's not perfect. No world is." For a few minutes, they both sat in silence. Comfortable silence. But then, from the far corner of the diner, a small red light blinked on the wall terminal. No one noticed it, except a hooded figure sitting alone by the door. The figure's eyes followed Liraya carefully. He tapped a device on his wrist. The hologram of a symbol appeared, a silver crescent moon. The mark of the Lunari resistance. He whispered, "We found her." Outside the diner, the streets of Virion Prime shined with floating lights and flying cars. Eli walked beside Liraya toward the lower sectors. The air smelled of metal and rain. She carried a small pack, her only belongings, while Eli kept his hands in his jacket pockets. "Do they always treat you like that?" Eli asked quietly. She didn't answer for a moment. "They don't hate me," she said finally. "They just don't see me." Eli frowned. "That's not right." "It's the way things are," she said simply. They passed through a narrow walkway filled with workers and drones. Somewhere above, a ship took off, roaring into the clouds. Liraya looked up at it, eyes full of longing. "My people once flew ships like that," she whispered. "Now we clean them." Eli stopped walking. "Maybe that can change," he said. She smiled sadly. "You sound like someone who still believes in hope." "Someone has to," Eli replied. Meanwhile, in a dark room miles away, a group of men in military uniforms watched a holographic feed, the Star Diner's security footage. On the screen, they saw Eli and Liraya talking, smiling, walking together. "Zoom in," one of them ordered. The image focused on Liraya's glowing blue face. "She matches the genetic scan," another man said. "That's her, Liraya Ven, the last known heir of the Lunari Council." The officer in charge, a tall man with a scar down his face, the same one from the diner, clenched his jaw. "So she's still alive," he muttered. "If the resistance finds her, they'll rise again. We can't let that happen." "What about the human?" "Carter." The officer smirked. "He's just a pilot. He doesn't know who she is yet. But he'll lead us straight to her." He turned off the feed and ordered, "Prepare a tracker drone. I want eyes on both of them." Back on the streets, Liraya and Eli reached a small mechanic shop near the underlevels. The sign flickered weakly, "Rayn Ship Repair." "This is where I work," Liraya said, opening the metal door. Inside, the shop was quiet, filled with tools, engines, and half-built droids. She turned on the lights, revealing a dusty little space that felt more like home than anything else. Eli looked around. "You fix all this by yourself?" "Mostly," she said. "I used to help build Lunari ships when I was younger. My father taught me before the war." Her voice trembled slightly. Eli didn't press her for more. Instead, he smiled. "You're amazing, you know that?" She looked surprised. "No one's ever said that to me." "Well, they should have," Eli said. For the first time, she laughed, a quiet, musical sound that echoed softly through the workshop. But outside, unseen in the shadows, a small black drone hovered in the air, its red lens watching through the window. Hours later, after Eli left for his barracks, Liraya sat alone at her workbench. She turned on an old holo device, cracked and dusty. A blue light flickered to life, showing a recording. A man's voice spoke, calm and familiar. "If anyone finds this, tell my daughter Liraya. The stars still remember her." Her hands trembled. "Father," she whispered. Tears glimmered in her violet eyes. Suddenly the device beeped, a signal incoming. A strange voice spoke in a static tone. "Liraya Ven, if you can hear this, your people need you. The time has come." She froze. The same symbol, the silver crescent moon, appeared in the air. Her heart raced. "The resistance, they're still alive." But before she could respond, a loud sound echoed outside, like metal wings slicing the air. She looked out the window and saw the black drone turning toward her, its red eye glowing brighter. Liraya gasped. "They found me." The sound of metal wings echoed through the narrow streets of Virion Prime. Liraya looked up, heart pounding. The black drone hovered outside her workshop, its red eye flashing as it scanned the room. "Not again," she whispered. She grabbed her small pack, shoving the holo device inside. The drone tilted forward, a targeting light appearing on her chest. In one fast motion, she hit the lights and dove behind a metal crate. The drone fired. A sharp blue beam sliced through the air, melting part of the wall. Sparks flew. Liraya rolled across the floor, grabbed a wrench, and hurled it at the drone. The heavy tool hit the lens with a crack. The drone buzzed wildly, lost balance, and crashed into the side wall. She didn't wait to see if it was destroyed. She ran. Outside, rain poured over the steel streets. Neon lights reflected in puddles, painting her glowing skin with pink and blue. Her breath came fast as she turned corner after corner, trying to disappear into the crowd. But Virion Prime never slept. Everywhere, machines moved, people shouted, and screens glowed. She could hear the hum of other drones in the distance. Then a voice. Liraya. She froze. The voice was human. Familiar. Eli Carter sprinted toward her from the main road, his jacket soaked with rain. What's happening? I saw smoke from your shop. Eli, they found me, she said, eyes wide with fear. The soldiers, the ones from the diner. They're coming. Who's they? He asked, confused. No time, she said, grabbing his arm. We have to go. They ran together through the crowded city lanes, weaving between market stalls and hovering bikes. The sound of drones grew louder behind them. Blue lights flashed across the walls as search units spread through the sector. Eli pulled Liraya into a narrow alley and pressed her against the wall, hiding them behind a stack of crates. Start explaining, he said, breathing hard. Why are they after you? Liraya hesitated. Her voice was shaking. Because I'm not just a worker, Eli. My name is Liraya Ven, daughter of High Counselor Ven, leader of the Lunari before the war. Eli blinked. You mean you're royalty? I was, she said softly, before the humans destroyed our homeworld. He stared at her in shock. I thought the Lunari were gone. They thought so too, she whispered. But a few of us survived. My father sent me away before the last battle. He said one day someone would find me, and I'd have to find the others. Find them for what? To bring my people back. Before Eli could reply, a deep voice echoed through the alley. Well, looks like the rumors were true. They turned. Standing at the end of the alley was the scar-faced officer from the diner, flanked by two armored soldiers. Their rifles gleamed under the rain. Eli stepped in front of Liraya. She hasn't done anything wrong. The officer smirked. You have no idea who you're protecting, boy. That alien is a war relic. Dangerous. She's not dangerous, Eli said, his fists clenched. She's starving. The officer's grin faded. Take them both. The soldiers raised their weapons. Liraya grabbed Eli's hand. Run. They sprinted through the back alleys, lasers flashing behind them. The air filled with smoke and heat. Eli led her through a maintenance tunnel, sliding down a metal ladder into the lower levels. The sound of chasing boots and drones echoed above. They reached a dark, wet corridor filled with pipes and steam. Liraya leaned against the wall, gasping for air. They won't stop, she said. They'll hunt me until I'm dead. Not while I'm here, Eli said. She looked at him, surprised. You don't even know me. I don't have to, he replied. I just know what's right. For a moment neither spoke. The world above roared with thunder. Somewhere in the distance, alarms wailed. Then, from Liraya's pack, the hollow device started to blink again, the same silver crescent moon. She pulled it out. A voice came through the static. Liraya Ven, this is Captain Saren of the Lunari Resistance. We received your signal. You must reach the old starport, Section 9. We will find you there. The message ended. Eli looked at her. Then that's where we're going. She nodded, but her voice trembled. It's on the other side of the city, Eli. The upper levels are guarded by human patrols. Then we'll find another way, he said. Above them, the officer's men scanned the tunnels. One soldier turned on his comm. Sir, we lost visual. They're heading underground. The scar-faced officer's eyes narrowed. Seal off Sector 9. If she reaches that port, we'll lose her. Meanwhile, deep below the city, Liraya and Eli walked through the abandoned railways, lit only by flickering lights. Rusted signs hung from the walls. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the faint hum of engines. Why are you helping me, Eli? Liraya asked after a while. He smiled faintly. Because you remind me of what humans used to be, brave and kind. She looked at him, touched by his words. For a moment, their eyes met. Human and alien, both broken by war, yet finding hope in each other. Then a sound broke the silence. Heavy footsteps approaching fast. Liraya's voice trembled. They found us again. Eli reached for his blaster. Then we fight. The corridor filled with light as armored soldiers appeared at both ends. And the chase was far from over. The tunnel shook as boots pounded closer. Eli Carter raised his blaster, the small weapon glowing blue in the dark. Beside him, Liraya's hands trembled, but her violet eyes blazed with courage. "Stay behind me," he said. She nodded. Then the first shot came, a searing red beam that hit the wall beside them. Sparks rained down. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. "Move. Eli skjuter." They ran through the tunnel as soldiers opened fire. Liraya ducked behind a support beam while Eli turned and fired back, hitting one of the soldiers' visors. The man fell, his armor sparking. More soldiers poured in from both ends. "They're surrounding us," she cried. "Not yet," Eli said, grabbing her hand. "This way." He led her through a narrow maintenance shaft, crawling on hands and knees through the darkness. The tunnel twisted downward, deeper into the city's forgotten levels. The sound of gunfire echoed behind them, growing fainter. Finally, they dropped into a small chamber, an old power room filled with rusted generators and broken lights. Liraya looked around, panting. "What is this place?" "Old maintenance hub," Eli said, catching his breath. "Nobody comes here anymore." She sat down against the wall, her skin faintly glowing in the dark. "Eli, why are you helping me?" He looked at her for a moment, unsure how to answer. "Because I saw something in you back at that diner," he said softly. "Everyone else saw an alien. I saw someone who just wanted to be treated like a person." Liraya lowered her gaze. "You don't know what this means to me. For years, I thought kindness was gone from this galaxy." "Well," he said with a small smile, "I guess we just found it again." Above them, in the command center of Virion Prime, the scar-faced officer slammed his fist on the table. "How did they get past the lower checkpoints?" he barked. "Sir, the tunnels go deep," a soldier replied nervously. "Our scanners can't read that far underground." The officer glared at the screen. "Then send in the seekers. If they find her, shoot to capture. The Lunari must not rise again." Back in the tunnels, Eli checked his wrist communicator. It was flashing red, incoming message. He hesitated before pressing play. A hologram flickered above his arm, showing a human officer in full uniform. "Pilot Carter," the voice said coldly. "You are hereby ordered to locate and detain the Lunari fugitive, known as Liraya Ven. She is considered a Class A threat to planetary security. Bring her in alive." "Eli protse." The message ended. Liraya looked up. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. His heart felt heavy. He had been sent here for her all along. She stood, her eyes searching his face. "Eli." He sighed. "They wanted me to find you. That's why I was stationed here." Her glow dimmed. "So this was all a mission?" "No," he said quickly. "Not anymore." She shook her head. "You were supposed to capture me." "Yes," Eli said, stepping closer. "But I won't. Not after what I've seen. You're not a threat, Liraya. You're hope." Tears glimmered in her violet eyes. "Hope doesn't survive long on this planet." "Then I'll fight to protect it," he said. Before either could say more, a sharp sound echoed through the room, the metallic whine of drones. Liraya turned. "They're here." Dozens of small seeker drones flooded the tunnel entrance, red eyes glowing. Eli fired, blasting 2 of them out of the air, but more kept coming. Liraya ducked behind a machine, pulling a broken power cell from the floor. Sparks flew as she rewired it with quick, clever hands. "What are you doing?" Eli shouted. "Buying us time," she said. She threw the cell into the tunnel and hit a switch. A blinding flash filled the chamber as electricity surged through the air. The drones exploded in a wave of blue light. The shockwave threw them both backward. When the smoke cleared, Eli coughed and looked at her. "Remind me never to stand next to you when you say buying time." She smiled weakly. "You're still alive, aren't you?" He laughed once, then winced. His shoulder was bleeding. Liraya hurried to him, tearing a strip of her sleeve to bandage the wound. Her hands were gentle, her touch warm. "You're hurt," she said softly. "I'll live," he replied. "Thanks to you." Far above, the officer received a report. Sir, the seekers have been destroyed. Targets are still at large. The officer narrowed his eyes. Then we go ourselves. Prepare a drop team. I'll bring them in personally. In the tunnels below, Liraya and Eli moved deeper into the shadows, following the map glowing on her hollow device. The resistance said Section 9, Eli said. How far is it? About 3 kilometers, she replied. But the way ahead, it's not safe. He smirked. Since when has anything tonight been safe? She smiled faintly. You humans are strange. Yeah, he said. But we're good at surviving. As they walked, the tunnel widened into an underground railway. Old trains sat silent, covered in dust. Blue lights flickered on the walls. For a moment, everything felt calm again, almost peaceful. Then, from somewhere behind them, a low growl echoed through the dark. Eli turned, blaster raised. What was that? Liraya's eyes widened. That wasn't human. Something moved in the shadows, big, fast, and mechanical. The air vibrated with its steps. Eli aimed his weapon, his heart pounding. Looks like we're not alone down here. The tunnel air turned cold. Eli and Liraya froze as the deep growl echoed again, closer this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. A faint red light flickered from the far shadows, followed by the sound of metal scraping against stone. Eli aimed his blaster. Whatever that is, it's big. Liraya's violet eyes glowed faintly. It's not human, she whispered. And not one of ours either. A heavy step shook the floor. Then another. The darkness shifted, and from it a huge shape emerged. It was a machine but alive. A hybrid creature of steel and flesh, with glowing red veins pulsing through its armor. Its head was shaped like a hound's skull, but mechanical claws clicked against the floor. It sniffed the air, its sensors locking on them. Liraya gasped. A hunter unit. The humans built them during the war to track Lunari survivors. The creature growled, red eyes flaring brighter. Eli fired first. The blaster bolt hit its chest. Sparks flew, but it barely flinched. The machine roared and charged forward. Run! Liraya shouted. They sprinted down the tunnel, the monster crashing after them. Its claws tore through metal as it chased, smashing walls and scattering debris. The sound was deafening. Liraya turned, pulled a small energy tool from her belt, and fired a flash charge. A burst of blue light exploded in the creature's face. It stumbled, roaring, giving them a few seconds. They ducked through a maintenance hatch, slamming it shut behind them. The steel door bent under the beast's blows. It won't hold long, Eli said, panting. Liraya looked around. The room they'd entered was an old subway station, covered in dust and old signs. She spotted a power cable sparking nearby. I have an idea, she said quickly. Help me move this wire. Eli didn't question her. Together, they pulled the heavy cable across the floor, setting it near the door. What now? He asked. She opened a panel on the wall and reconnected the main breaker. Now we wait. The door cracked open. The creature forced its way in, growling, red eyes glowing like fire. It leapt forward. Now, Liraya shouted. Eli slammed the switch. A massive surge of electricity shot through the cable, straight into the monster. It screamed, its body convulsing with sparks. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Then finally it collapsed, smoking and still. Eli exhaled. Remind me never to argue with your ideas again. Liraya smiled weakly. That makes 2 of us. They sat down for a moment, breathing hard. The tunnel lights flickered faintly above them. Eli's arm was bleeding again, and Liraya tore a strip from her cloak to wrap it. You saved us, he said quietly. We saved each other, she replied. He looked at her, really looked. Her blue skin glowed softly in the dim light, and her expression was both strong and sad. You're not what they said you were, he murmured. Liraya tilted her head. What did they say? That Lunari were cold, dangerous, that you didn't care about life. She smiled faintly. Then they never met one. Meanwhile, far above, the scar-faced officer's ship hovered over the lower sectors. Through a comm feed, a soldier reported, Sir, the hunter unit's signal just went dark. The officer's eyes narrowed. So the girl took down one of our machines. Impressive. He turned toward his pilot. Send ground teams to the old starport. She'll be heading there next. Prepare for full lockdown. Back underground, Liraya and Eli continued walking through the rail tunnels. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of dripping water. The hollow device in her hand blinked again. Another message. A woman's voice came through, calm but urgent. Liraya, this is Captain Saren. We've located your signal. Hold your position if possible. We're sending a shuttle to extract you from Section 9. Liraya sighed in relief. They found us. Eli smiled. Guess that means we're not alone anymore. But the voice continued. Be careful. Human patrols have sealed the upper levels. The officer in charge, General Rook, has orders to capture you at all costs. Liraya froze. Rook, she whispered. He was the one who led the final attack on my people. Elias Yovtaitined. Then it's personal. She nodded. He killed my father. The air between them grew heavy with quiet rage and pain. Eli looked at her and said, Then we'll make sure he doesn't kill anyone else. They reached the end of the tunnel. A massive steel door leading to the old starport. The metal was corroded but still solid. Liraya placed her hand against the scanner. Her skin glowed, and the lock clicked open. Inside, the port was silent. Empty hangars, flickering lights, and broken ships. But in the distance, they could hear the faint hum of engines. The resistance ship coming to rescue them. Liraya smiled faintly. We made it. Eli nodded, but his instincts were sharp. Maybe too easy. Then the speakers crackled above them. A voice they both recognized. Well done, Carter. General Rook's voice said coldly. You led her straight to us. Liraya's eyes widened. No. Eli shook his head. No, he's lying. But the ceiling lights flared on, revealing a dozen soldiers dropping from above. Weapons aimed at them. Red lasers filled the air. Rook stepped out from the shadows, his scar catching the light. The galaxy doesn't need saviors, he said. It needs control. Eli raised his blaster. You'll have to go through us first. Rook smiled darkly. Gladly. Blinding light filled the old starport. Soldiers surrounded Eli and Liraya, their rifles humming with deadly energy. High above, General Rook stood on a steel platform, his scarred face calm but cruel. Drop your weapon, Carter, he ordered. You've done your part. You brought the alien right where we wanted her. Eli gritted his teeth. You're wrong, Rook. I didn't bring her here for you. I brought her home. Rook laughed. Home? For a dying species. He nodded to his soldiers. End this. The first shot came. Eli dived behind a cargo crate, dragging Liraya with him. Sparks exploded as lasers hit the metal. The whole hangar roared with gunfire. Stay low. Eli shouted. Liraya's eyes glowed brighter, her hands trembling. There's too many of them. We'll find a way, he said, firing back. His blaster hit one soldier's shoulder, sending him spinning to the ground. But there were still at least 10 more. Rook watched from above, smiling like a hunter. You think you can fight the Empire, boy? You're just one man. Eli shouted up, maybe. But one man can still make a choice. He pulled a grenade from his belt and tossed it toward a fuel line. The blast ripped across the hangar, throwing several soldiers backward. Smoke filled the air. Alarms wailed. Go, Eli said, pushing Liraya toward the inner doors. They ran through the haze, coughing, until they reached the docking platform. In the distance, through the cracked ceiling, a ship descended, the Resistance shuttle, sleek and silver, lights glowing. Liraya's face lit up with hope. They came. But before the shuttle could land, anti-air turrets on the roof activated. Red beams shot upward, hitting the shuttle's wing. It spun, struggling to stay steady. Rook's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. No one leaves this port alive. The shuttle managed to hover, but it was burning. Over the comm, Captain Saren's voice shouted. Liraya, we can't hold long. You must reach the upper gate now. Liraya looked to Eli. We have to move. They sprinted across the port floor, ducking between fire and smoke. 2 soldiers appeared near the stairs. Eli fired first, dropping one. The second lunged forward, knocking Eli's blaster away. They crashed to the floor, fighting hand to hand. The soldier was strong, armored, trained. He punched Eli hard, sending him to the ground. As the soldier raised his weapon, Liraya screamed. No! Her hands glowed suddenly bright, blinding white. A wave of energy burst from her palms, slamming into the soldier, and sending him flying across the hangar. Eli stared in shock. What was that? Liraya looked at her glowing hands, trembling. I don't know. I've never. Before she could finish, the lights flickered, and a cold voice echoed above. Rook was descending the stairs slowly, rifle in hand. So the stories were true, he said. The Lunari still carry their cursed light. He raised his weapon. Let's see how bright it burns before it dies. Eli jumped in front of her, but Rook fired. The shot hit Eli in the side. He fell to his knees, gasping. Eli! Liraya cried, catching him. His blood stained her hands. He tried to smile. Still fine, keep going. Rook approached, rifle aimed again. Move aside, alien. Liraya's tears glowed faintly as they fell. You took everything from us, she whispered. My father. My world. You won't take him too. Her glow intensified, brighter and brighter until the entire hangar was bathed in white light. The air vibrated. Sparks of energy swirled around her, lifting dust and debris. Rook stumbled back, shielding his eyes. What is this? Eli Votchavin Eve. Liraya, you're. Her voice changed, deeper, echoing with power. I am Lunari, daughter of the stars. A pulse of pure energy exploded outward. Every weapon in the room shattered. Soldiers were thrown against the walls. The glass ceiling above cracked and shattered, letting moonlight pour in. When the light faded, silence fell. Rook's armor was scorched, his weapon gone. He stared at her in shock. Impossible. Liraya stepped forward slowly, her eyes burning with silver light. You tried to erase us. But the stars remember. Rook reached for a knife, but before he could move, Eli grabbed his blaster and fired. The shot hit the ground beside Rook's feet, a warning. Leave. Eli said coldly. Before I stop warning. Rook glared at them both, then turned and staggered toward a side door, disappearing into the smoke. Liraya knelt beside Eli, helping him stand. He winced but managed a weak smile. That light show, remind me never to make you mad. She laughed through her tears. I didn't mean to do it. Remind me to thank your ancestors later, he said, grinning faintly. Above them, the resistance shuttle stabilized again and lowered a platform. Captain Saren's voice came through the comms. We're here. Get aboard now. Liraya wrapped Eli's arm around her shoulders. Together, they ran to the ramp as the engines roared. Blasts hit the floor around them, the last of Rook's troops firing from afar. They leapt onto the ramp, just as the ship rose into the air. Through the open hatch, Liraya looked down at the burning starport below. Her old prison, now collapsing under fire. She whispered softly. The stars still remember us, Father. The ship soared higher, breaking through the storm clouds. For the first time in years, Liraya saw the stars clearly, endless, shining and free. Eli leaned beside her, weak but smiling. Where to now? She turned to him, eyes glowing softly. Home if it still exists. The resistance shuttle cut through the clouds, escaping the burning starport. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and hope. Liraya sat beside Eli, holding a bandage to his side. His face was pale, but his smile never faded. You saved us again, he whispered weakly. She shook her head. You saved me first. Remember? Eli chuckled softly then winced. Guess we're even. Captain Saren turned from the cockpit. We can't go back to base. Rook's forces are everywhere. We'll have to hide. Liraya looked out the window, her silver eyes glowing faintly. There's a place, a world far from the Empire's eyes. My people once lived there. Maybe it still remembers us. Saren nodded. Then that's where we'll go. Hours passed as stars streaked past the windows. The hum of the engines was calm, almost peaceful. Liraya sat near the viewport, watching the galaxy. For the first time in years, she wasn't hungry or afraid. But her heart was heavy. She thought of the Lunari, her people, wiped out, scattered across the stars. Was she the last one left? Eli limped over, sitting beside her. You okay? She nodded slowly. Just thinking. About what? About how easy it is for people to hate what they don't understand, she said quietly. And how hard it is to forgive. Eli looked at her reflection in the glass. You've already done both. That's strength. Her lips curved into a small smile. Maybe it's hope. When they dropped out of hyperspace, the ship entered a glowing nebula. Inside it floated a small, quiet planet surrounded by rings of light. It shimmered like a pearl in the dark. Liraya's heart skipped. That's it. Lunaris. Captain Saren frowned. It's beautiful. But are you sure it's safe? No one has been here for 100 years, Liraya said. If the Empire finds us, we'll already be gone. They descended through soft clouds, landing in a valley of crystal trees. The air glowed faintly blue, and rivers of light flowed across the ground like living stars. When Liraya stepped out, her feet sank into the glowing grass. She closed her eyes and felt the wind. It's still alive, she whispered. The planet remembers. Eli stood beside her, awe in his eyes. Feels like walking in a dream. She smiled. For me, it's like coming home. As night fell, they built a small camp near the ruins of an old Lunari temple. Statues of her ancestors stood broken but proud, watching over the valley. Liraya placed her hand on one cracked stone, and whispered a prayer in her native tongue. Then faintly the crystal floor began to glow brighter. Captain Saren stepped back. What's happening? The world is answering her, Eli said softly. The glow spread, lighting the temple with waves of silver light. Symbols appeared in the air, floating and shifting like living memories. Liraya's tears shone as she whispered, They're here, my people's essence. Then, one of the lights moved toward her, touching her chest. A voice echoed inside her mind. Calm, loving, ancient. You are not the last. The light of Lunaris lives through you. She gasped, falling to her knees. Her markings shone brighter than ever. The ground trembled as more lights rose from beneath the soil. Thousands of tiny orbs. Eli and Saren watched in silence. Slowly, the orbs began to form shapes, figures of light, Lunari spirits walking among them. They're alive. Eli whispered. Liraya shook her head, smiling through tears. Not alive. Remembered. And memory is life. Suddenly, a loud beep came from the shuttle. Saren ran inside and shouted. The Empire is here. They tracked our signal. Eli grabbed his blaster. They never stop. Liraya stood, her eyes glowing fiercely. Then neither will we. Ships broke through the clouds, black and roaring. Laser fire rained from the sky. The ground shook as explosions hit the nearby cliffs. Eli fired back, protecting the temple entrance. Saren manned the turrets. But they were outnumbered. Dozens of Imperial dropships descended fast. Liraya stepped into the open, raising her arms. The Lunari lights around her rose into the sky like a swarm of stars. Her voice echoed, calm but powerful. Lunaris, lend me your light. The sky itself seemed to answer. The glowing orb shot upward, forming a massive shield of silver energy. Beams of enemy fire hit it, and shattered into harmless sparks. From below, Eli stared in awe. She's doing it again. But this time, it wasn't rage or fear driving her. It was peace, strength, love. The shield expanded, pushing back the Imperial ships. The energy wave spread across the valley, disabling engines, shorting weapons. One by one the dropships fell, not destroyed but silenced. When it was over, the valley was quiet again. The lights faded slowly into the earth. Liraya stood still, her glow softening. Eli ran to her. You did it. She smiled faintly. No, we did. The light of one heart is small, but together, it becomes a star. He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, So what now? Liraya turned toward the shining horizon. Now we rebuild. Months later, the Lunari world thrived again. Humans and Lunari worked side by side, planting, building, healing. Eli stood near a glowing tree, watching children, some human, some Lunari, play in the crystal fields. Liraya walked beside him, her silver eyes filled with peace. They laughed when I starved, she said softly. But one human reached out. That changed everything. Eli smiled. Sometimes all it takes is one meal, one kindness. She took his hand. and one promise, to never forget what light can do. The two stood together under the twin moons of Lunaris, watching the stars shine above, free, alive, and endless.